Hello everybody, it's me Ross and welcome to a new video. Today I'm joined by Dazza, Jon and Ben as we review the dramatic year that was in 2021 for Ipswich Town. We had two Pauls sacked, we have new owners, Kieran McKenna now in charge, and many ups and downs following this football club. And we're going to go through January till December and every month something happens, which is different actually for Town. Normally it's a bit of a dull time being a Town supporter, but the last couple of years it's been crazy. Dazza, we're going to start off in January, and that was a month which saw, well, not much really. Result-wise, we started the year with a 3-2 defeat against Swindon, live on TV, and then we went on to beat Burton 1-0, then a 1-0 back-to-back home defeats against Peterborough and Sunderland, then a 1-1 draw with Crewe. Aaron Drynen's only Town goal against Crewe. And also, the paper. We did the front page picture of Paul Lambert. It's time to go. And it was the start of him leaving the club. What's your thoughts on January? It was a month that it was destined that Paul Lambert was probably going to go.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem such a long time ago now. I read Stuart Watson's excellent review of the year, and I couldn't believe how much had happened in 12 months. But going back to January, it was a pretty depressing time to be a Town fan. It was all miserable on the pitch. We were in COVID lockdown restrictions. It wasn't great. And Paul Lambert's time, as you said, was coming to an end, but it had been dragging on for a long time. All of us, I think, if you watch all of our podcasts in January, we're all just fed up with it. We all wanted him out. And as you said, finally the paper made a massive statement to, point out that it was time for change. So, all in all, January was very depressing to be a Town fan. And even I think our only win was a really jammy, undeserved 1-0 win away to Burton, wasn't it? Where the Arsenal guy, he headed in. And there was lots of games last season where we won and it didn't fill me with joy. Lancaster's last minute goal against whenever it was Swindon or somewhere.
Shrewsbury, yeah.
Shrewsbury. That all it did was kept Lambert in his job. So it was such a weird situation to be winning a game and not being happy about it. But yeah, January, pretty grim. As you said, Paul Lambert's time was almost coming to an end.
Pretty much. And it was a bit of a lackluster transfer window as well. We saw four loan signings happen. Josh Harrop, Luke Thomas, Troy Parrott and Luke Matheson signed. I think two of those players didn't even play many games.
No, and I was really disappointed. I mean, Luke Matheson, I was really excited about him because I'd seen him playing for Rochdale, was it? Or Rochdale, one of those, in the FA Cup games, and he was brilliant. And I was really excited about that. Harrop didn't know anything about him, and he proved to be okay and then dismal. And then Luke Thomas, obviously, for his own issues, wasn't able to play many games. Who was the other one? Did we sign someone else?
Matheson, the right back.
Yeah, Matheson. So it was all in all very ineffective, short-term, inexperienced loan signings. So nothing to be excited about. Nothing that sparked a sudden recovery in results. So yeah, pretty. A very different transfer window to what we saw later in the year. So that's for sure.
Very much so. And Jon, February saw protests and, apparently the training ground was on fire, quoted by Stuart Taylor. Of course, Blue Action went down there and did what they did. Of course, on the pitch, there was results. A 2-0 win against Blackpool at home to start off February, but then a 2-1 defeat against Peterborough. Then 2 goalless draws against Northampton and Oxford, which included an Alan Judge headbutt on a referee. Then a 1-0 win against Hull, and then a 2-1 win against Doncaster. February was a month. The big talking point, of course, was the protest, and Lambert just about hanging on as Town manager.
Yeah, it was a funny old month looking back, and I don't know about everybody else, but it seems so much longer than a year ago. 11 months ago, as it would be. I've just looked at my tweets in and I tweeted on the 1st or 2nd of February a quote from what Paul Lambert said in August 19 about him saying, I could say to Marcus, forget the training ground, forget the stadium, forget the kids, we'll just keep going with 6 or 7 loans and I'll just try and win games. I'm the wrong person for Ipswich if that's the case. I may as well just pack my bags and go home. And then he absolutely did what he said he would do. He brought in loads more loan players and forgot about the kids. And that probably showed you the mess he was in, really. And I don't know any Ipswich fan at that time. When we talk in later months to come, look, there was many fans still who wanted Paul Cook to stay, but I didn't know many fans who were passionately behind Paul Lambert. He was, people calling him a liar, a shambit. He didn't help himself. He started just saying even more nonsense than he usually did about it was really, really good, we're a really good team, or we were just bored of his utter nonsense. And but the results in February actually better than I remember. Looking back. So yeah, a difficult time. I think after the newspaper decided to make their stance back in the January, like Darren, you were just talking about, Blue Action decided to up it a little bit. I think, to be fair to Blue Action, they've pitched things really well throughout. I'm not a big fan of kind of violent protests or anything like that, but this was about just making a statement. It wasn't about causing chaos. And I think some of the reactions of people like Stuart Taylor and stuff about the training ground was on fire. It wasn't. There was a few blue flares, if all I remember, and maybe one hoarding caught fire a tiny little bit. But I don't think that's. I think a lot was made of that about how terrible the fans were, and I don't think that was the case at all. But it was time when the fans as a whole were losing absolute patience and faith in Lambert. I certainly wasn't a Lambert fan by that point by any means. I think I gave him a benefit of a doubt, but let's be fair, January was so woeful. It would have taken a miracle worker to kind of make us feel happier come February. And you look at some of the results, not that exciting really. We managed to draw those. I just remember the games against Northampton and stuff being absolutely dismal. I felt like falling asleep while watching it. It was a waste of £10 on iFollow. It was awful experience. There was no enjoyment watching Ipswich, and I think that's my striking memory. To be fair, Ross, I just wasn't enjoying watching Ipswich, and that's not the way supporting the team should be. I'm not saying we should ever think we're all going to be playing like Barcelona or whoever it may be, and we don't expect that. We just want passion, we want commitment, we want effort, and we want to see people trying. And at that point, it was pretty woeful, wasn't it?
Was February the month as well? I think it was after the 0-0 Oxford draw where Lambert started having a go at the press and everyone. Do you remember that press conference after that game? And he started having a go at the fans against Stuart Watson, Brenner. He just went, didn't he, for everyone? Yeah. And that they were the people causing the problems.
And I think it may have been January when there was the match of the day. Football Focus. He played that I've had COVID card, and it felt like he was trying to get national press to support him whilst turning everybody at Ipswich against him. Maybe just trying to keep his public stock high, I suppose, to get a future job. Maybe the cynic in you might think that, but it was a funny time, wasn't he? Because he was really, didn't he slate all the young players and defend the old players as well at one point?
Yeah, it was who's the midfielder, the young lad,
McGavin.
Yeah, McGavin came in and did all right, and then he just slated him.
Yeah,
it's like what are you on about? Terrible.
Yeah, we ended the month with victory over my two local teams, Hull and Doncaster. And I remember going into that Hull match saying that Hull aren't that good, but we were expecting nothing, and we managed to give a really hard fought.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Performance where we actually seemed to have, style and grit and determination that we hadn't shown in that kind of, and we got a win against the team who ended up going up, and they were doing okay in the championship. So it's funny football, isn't it? You get beaten, draw against Northampton, get beaten at Peterborough and that kind of thing, and then suddenly you end up winning 2 games in a row. But I think, weren't they both under McGeel?
Well, that was the rumour, wasn't it? That officially Lambert was the manager, but McGeel.
Yeah,
I mean, how much truth is in that? I don't know. But McGeel was the guy.
He started letting them all do their own press conferences more as well, didn't they? Even though they were league games. And he'd done that with Stuart Taylor in the League Cup and that kind of thing before, which I understand. But suddenly, Gill was on the sidelines being a lot more visible, let's say. So it was a weird time.
And we started leaving 3 up front for our corners, which I know, which is actually a really good tactic, because it means that they've got to leave people back and they can't pile everyone in the box. That was a McGeel thing, and we started scoring goals from set pieces.
And that never happens.
No, it still doesn't.
It doesn't. But yeah, that was February, and of course, as I said, it was the end of the road for Paul Lambert. And on the 1st of March, he was gone, Ben, and Paul Cook was his successor. And also in February, quickly, of course, The Athletic reported that Town were on the verge of a takeover by a US investment group, although that doesn't happen until April. But Ben, it was a new era once again at Town. Paul Cook in charge. It didn't start so well, though. A 3-1 defeat at Gillingham. 1-1 draw against Lincoln. A 1-0 win against Plymouth. So his first Town win. But then a 2-0 defeat against Fleetwood. A 2-1 defeat at Portsmouth. Then a goalless draw on his return to Wigan. So not a great start for Paul Cook in the dugout. But it was a new era once again.
Yeah, I think everyone was delighted to see the back of Lambert at this point. Like John touched on, you'd find it very hard to find a Town fan at that moment in time who wanted anybody, who wanted Lambert to stay. It had all just gone to crap, hadn't it, really? And Cook coming in, amazing pedigree. I think everyone agreed at the time you really couldn't have got a better manager at the level of Football League One. I think Cook said we'll reach for the stars, or the club should reach for the stars. Everyone was like, oh yes, top 2's not out of the question, we could go on a run, he plays attacking football, and obviously it all sounds so laughable as the words come out of my mouth now. And he goes on to win the first one game in his first 6, very similar to the start of this season. Just couldn't get across his philosophy for this bunch of players. Then I remember even within the first few games, people were saying it's the players' fault. We've got a good manager now. These players aren't up to it, etc., etc., etc. So we had a little bit of hope after having, living through a sort of a real winter of discontent, I think we could call it. Rumours of the takeover obviously were emerging, particularly on our WhatsApp group. I remember anyone was looking for any kind of snippet of truth, because everybody was sick to the back teeth of Evans. And if we could find, new money, how exciting that would be. Again, obviously that comes to fruition in April, which we'll get onto. But March, I remember it was just a funny time. Again, still following the team on iFollow. You couldn't go to the games. I remember the Portsmouth game. Edwards scored an absolute screamer. Great layoff by Norwood. Thinking, 1-0 up at Pompey. This is looking good. And then we just didn't turn up second half. Again, the same sort of issues we've had throughout Cook's in charge, really. That first month was a bit of a microcosm of the whole time in charge, the whole year in charge that he had with us, almost a full season, I think 45 games. So just couldn't play consistent football. We'd look good for 45 minutes and then just we'd manage to either just eke out a result or lose. So, March didn't start well. Chambers got his last goal for Ipswich in that month. If we're calling out landmarks, that's one of them, I guess. But yeah, that's March. Just more of what we've seen over Cook's tenure over the first month.
Definitely. And Dazza, over to you. Momentous day happened on the 7th of April. New owners took over. Evans was gone, although he did write off debts of close to 100 million. So fair play to him.
Yeah, it's huge.
Of course, he watched the goalless draw at Rochdale. That was his last game as Ipswich Town owner. We also beat Bristol Rovers 2-1 that month. A goalless draw against MK Dons. Then some bad defeats. 3-0 defeat against Wimbledon. A 0-0 draw against Charlton. And a 3-0 defeat against Northampton, which, well, dearie me, that was not good. Yeah. And then a 0-0 draw against Wimbledon once again. And I'm going to quote what Paul Cook said. We're not far off a Sunday League team that has won a cup to play at Portman Road. What a month it was.
Yeah, and I think that was also, I mean, obviously the results weren't good, but I think most of us had given up on the season by then. So whatever was win, lose, draw, it didn't really make any difference because our season was done by then. But I think really that's where I started getting concerned as well about Cook's man management ability, because we all saw him as an old school, manager. So man management is something that, is always a plus point for those sort of old school managers. And his comments after the Wimbledon game were really harsh, and some of them were quite funny because he was talking about, like you just said, Sunday League team that have won a raffle to play a game and all this sort of stuff. But clearly everything, he hadn't been able to come in, hadn't been able to create a team out of some good players that we had. He wasn't able to do anything with Downs, which is a massive, massive shame. I think that we lost, that he couldn't come in and convince Downs to be, part of what we were doing. Because can you imagine now Downs in the team that we've got now? Would be amazing. But anyway, that was another. By then I think when we're now April, the takeover. I kind of didn't believe any of these rumors and was just like, right, that's just, if it happens, it happens. And fair play to Marcus Evans, who clearly didn't run the club well, but he financially, he did better than virtually every single, owner in the Football League. So many clubs have been going out of business and bust and selling off assets and all that. And we weren't in any of those positions. We were, and then to write off 100 million quid is just ridiculous. That's a really something he needs to be respected for sure. But yeah, the new owners coming in, American, rah, lots of optimism flooding the place. Lots of
USA.
Yeah, I haven't got it. I should have bought it, but I got one of the Ipswich USA mugs, with the American flag on and the ponies, and it was. We started watching Phoenix Rising at 2:00 in the morning, and like it was a new, a totally
You was not me.
Yeah,
I was going to say we, Darren. You.
Yeah, I think me and Segs. I think we were kind of showed a bit of interest. But yeah, it was at the start of, I think, us fans hoping that we were now going to get our club back again. We were now going to be, results on the pitch would improve. And an exciting time. April was full of optimism, for sure.
Definitely. And I've got to mention also April, Paul Cook declared himself as demolition man. That is what he did, of course, in May. John, May, we'll forget about the results. That doesn't matter. We did end the season, though, with a 3-1 win against Fleetwood, which also included a goal scorer for Fleetwood who went on to sign for us, of course, Wes Burns. But, we're going to rattle out the names. A lot of players left. Of course, part of the demolition man, Luke Chambers, Cole Skuse, Freddie Sears, Alan Judge, so many players.
And I think we all talked about a lot of that time about who was he going to keep. And Ross, I remember doing a video with you around which players I would keep and getting pelters for saying I might keep Cole Skuse. But, there was a lot of Ipswich stalwarts, people like Chambers and Skuse who have been there for such a long time. People like Judge who have been there for a good few years, who had been potentially the key player, never quite delivered. People like Freddie Sears who'd been around the block with us a long time. Then there was our own kind of youngsters like Flynn Downs and Lancaster and Bishop. The list just went on. I probably missed somebody really obvious there, but that's just we had a massive overhaul. All the loan players, Bennett's and all those kind of people, they all shown the door. Harrod, Bennett's, what was he about? Anyway, he was a very odd player for Town.
Oh, God, Darren. Sorry, John, just saying his name has just given me the shivers.
But we literally got rid of everybody who we thought we might, but I didn't think all of us thought he would get rid of them all. We all talked about those players, but he did the whole batch. And the irony is he kept people like Toto and NCR who have ended up figuring, which none of us would have put money on, I suppose, at that point. But it was a massive, monumentous kind of change of the club, wasn't it? I can't remember any other club. Obviously, when you support your team, you know more about that team than you know about lots of others. And there's another few clubs who have done big turnovers, but often they've signed players who have been on loan for a period of time and then added some more as well. We didn't. We just cleared the decks completely. And that was breathtaking, exciting, worrying. But I guess we all heard about Ashton coming in for the 1st of June, if I remember correctly. So March was that weird time when we're hearing snippets of players were only giving a 3 to 4 minute conversation with Cook. And I think looking back, maybe he didn't handle some of the exits as well as he could potentially do. And, I know not everybody's a Luke Chambers fan, and I get that. I always saw a man who gave his all for the club when he played for them. I also saw him play dreadfully as a right back under Mick McCarthy. So I'm not suddenly Luke Chambers' number one fan. But I think when somebody's given such loyal dedication and service, I think you would hope to be handled a little bit more classy, really. So we don't know the whole ins and outs, but I don't think there was much love lost between some of the players and that management team, let's say. But it was a real exciting month of speculation, I suppose. Who were we going to get? Who was going to stay? Who was going to go? And normally, in the January transfer window, we're going, which average loan player we're going to get? And here we are in May going, we're getting rid of everybody. What's going to happen? And to be true to Paul Cook, he was demolition man. He got rid of the whole damn lot of them, really. Whether we replaced them all with rightly, there's arguments that I'm sure we can get into when we talk about the players we signed come July and August. But people like James Wilson, have we actually? Yeah, Edmondson's a class above Wilson, but is anybody else at the club better than James Wilson as a pairing? For you could argue that we maybe let some people go who we didn't need to let go. But he obviously wanted to make his stamp, and to be fair to the new owners, who were all so impressed with the way they were engaging with fans and the way O'Leary was speaking, and we'll get onto that when Ben talks about June, the way Ashton spoke. But the owners made us all feel excited, and they said to Cook, go and do your thing. So, I might have started this little video saying February was a boring month. You can't say that about. You certainly can't say that about May, can you? Because it was so exciting. I can't remember a time in my 35 years of supporting Town, whatever it is, 37 years of supporting Town, where so much change happened in such a short period of time, to be fair.
Then I'm going to let Ben sort of take over June and July, because pretty much it all merges into one, because it was players leaving, then players coming in, a lot of new signings. Mark Ashton, of course, as John said, his first day was the 1st of June. And some of the key signings in June, of course, Wes Burns was the first man to sign. Then Gordon Edwards left. Andre Dazza then was sold to QPR. Then Raheem Harper came in. Macaulay Bond joins on loan. Vaclav Halanki, however you say it, comes in. July also Lee Evans, Matt Penny, Piggott, Fraser, Emerson, Chaplin sign. Of course, friendlies are getting played. Fans are back in the stadium. June and July was very busy as Town fans, and also as us doing this podcast. We were busy every day because there was a new signing coming in, someone leaving, and then fans were back in the ground seeing pre-season games. What a crazy 2 months that was, June and July.
Yeah, usually June is probably the quietest month as a footballing fan. It's usually the 1 month you kind of have sort of switch off, really, because you've got players just going on their holidays and no pre-season till the end of June, beginning of July. But this is completely different. It's the most eventful summer I've known as an Ipswich fan, full stop. It was every single day you were, scrolling Twitter to see who we'd signed, or if there was another press release, or, desperate for those pre-season shots from the training ground. Those of us who are interested in kits, you've got kits flying out, training gear flying out. It was just so much happening all the time. It was really exciting as a Town fan. I remember in particular hanging on every word from Ashton. He's fantastic with his PR, great with his communications. And, from a point where we had none of that whatsoever under Evans, we've gone from 0 to 100 in no time at all. So it's exactly what the club needed at the time. We need to see more results on the pitch now. But at that moment in time, I think we've gone from, so bored of being in League One, a boring football club where nothing is happening, to thinking, crikey, we're on the tracks again now. We're moving in the right direction. Burns coming in first signing was just that sort of quality of player. My personal opinion is, along with Edmondson and Walton, the best signings we've made. He's been absolutely class. So yeah, that first man through the door showed the intent. Losing Dazza and Downs, I think, unfortunately, they probably just didn't quite want to be here, but it helped balance the books. What I found probably the most impressive thing of the whole of June and July is when I think towards the end of July, Ashton came out and said, money-wise, we're almost broken even because of the Downs and the Dazelle sale. So I know, Darren, I'm sure your heart still hasn't completely recovered and in one piece since Dazelle left. But they were needed. And again, Ashton has shown that great work in the transfer market by evening up the books. So yeah, I was really encouraged by what happened in June, July. We were scoring a few goals in pre-season as well when those first couple of games started. The calibre of players, as I said, was really where we needed to be looking at. And I was more excited then than probably am now. But June and July were excellent, Ross. Exciting times.
It was indeed. And I also forgot to mention, Darren, you're wearing this season's kit. Of course, Ed Sheeran became the sponsor of the shirt in May. I forgot to mention that in John's chat. But that was a big statement from the club, of course, becoming a worldwide sensation, really, because Ed Sheeran is worldwide. Then August, Dazza, we were off. The season starts. 9 debuts as Town start the season with a 2-2 home draw against newly promoted Morecambe. Of course, Bon had to come off the bench and score a late equaliser. Many more signings were made. Carl Edwards comes in. Flynn Downs leaves. Cameron Burgess signs. Then we lost against Burton, which was a nice day because I actually got to see you again in person.
We were there.
Tom Carroll comes in. Macaulay Bonne then missed a sitter at Cheltenham as we lost 2-1. Ben Tozer's only long throws. 2-2 draw against MK Dons. Another 2-2 home draw against Wimbledon. Then deadline day. Walton, Selena, Moorseys. It was a mad August, but not the start we wanted on the pitch, though. But off the pitch, some great signings.
Yeah, I kind of highlighted on my list that I did before of sort of highlights, and just being back at a ground again. All of us, as Ben has said, we've all been watching on iFollow. I think me and John, we watched every single game, even though we didn't really want to, but that was the commitment. You got to tick the box once So just to be, I went to the friendly at Palace just to take that opportunity to be back at a game again. So certainly, during that whole COVID time, it kind of really sparked my love for being back at live sporting events, football being my sort of top thing. But, I'm also love motorsport and other things. And there's nothing like being there to watch it. And I think as a group of fans, we've come out in our numbers this season. I think our home attendances have been good. Obviously, what's going on now, we'll pack out Pullman Road, but our away allocations, we were
in the top 7 for the whole of the English Football League, Darren.
Yeah. But that's really impressive, and I think we've pretty much sold all of the allocation we were given by the clubs. We've had some good away days this season. Most of the results haven't been that brilliant, but we were there at Lincoln, weren't we all? Was that this month?
No, that was
about
September.
Okay. I won't. Okay, I'll stop talking there about that then. But yeah, the start of the season was it was full of words like time to gel, and all those sorts of phrases. Lots of players coming in. Honestly, I didn't know very much about most of the players coming in. The one player I still have a bit of a man crush on is Hladky. I was so excited when we signed him, and I got to say, I am disappointed with how it's gone for him. He hasn't come in and made any saves. He's done some basic stuff, but we've seen with Walton what a difference it made. Walton is that away game to Charlton it could have been 5 or 6 if it hadn't been for Walton. And unfortunately, Hladky didn't come in and make any saves, did he? It was all, so I'm really disappointed for him, but he's better than he's shown, I think. But yeah, the start of the season, a little bit frustrated. I think as a group of fans, our patience levels were boosted again. We were like ready to get behind the new manager, the new team, the new ownership, and give it time to gel. And obviously that patience bucket dropped a little bit as we get to the end of August, because we still haven't won a game. But we're all turning up and supporting the team anyway.
Definitely. And September, John, it didn't start so well. September, a 5-2 home defeat against Bolton. Then we lost against West Ham under-21s, which extended the winless start to 8 matches. But then, finally, relief. We won. We had to grind out a 1-0 win at Lincoln. Of course, Mark Ashton was very passionate with the away fans, going over and doing fist pumps and everything. Then a 1-1 draw against Sheffield Wednesday. Of course, he's behind you with Macaulay Bonne setting up the winner. The equaliser, sorry. Then what a night it was against your hometown of Doncaster. 6-0 win against them, against a dire Doncaster. And we thought, we got lift off here. But September was a good month all round in terms of we finally got some wins on the board.
Yeah, I think you can't talk about September without putting it in context of August, because August, I was at quite a few of the games, and certainly against Burton, if Fraser had scored the penalty, at Morecambe, if Bonne had taken his chance, Cheltenham, Bonne had taken his chance, it was all fine margins of either not getting the winner and getting the point, or not getting the point and getting beaten. And I think that kind of continued. But I think the Bolton defeat was the one where lots of people got angry for the first time and really frustrated. And then, of course, we followed that up, as you said, with the EFL. But the performance at Lincoln, which I was present for, with Darren as well, a nurse, it was a great day out, that one. That was really terrific. The sun was shining. We were in good voice. And we bossed the first half, I seem to remember. And in the second half, we had to grind it out and do. It was like the dark arts.
Selena's first game, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then Ashton went ballistic at the end, and it was fantastic to see. He was so excited. Such a relief. He obviously, I know the salty Bristol City fans are still kind of saying, get him out of your club, he's evil, and all that kind of stuff. I still get people tweeting me say, why do you like this man? I was like, because he was showing passion when, and he communicates well, and you could see what it meant to him, having worked so hard over the summer. And I want people at our club who care, and he certainly appears to. If I've been taken in by an amazing PR man, then I'll admit it down the line, but I like to see he's just good at what he does. But that was a vital first win, and it was it felt like, we finally got there, and we showed character. We didn't lose it at the end. And then I came down to Portman Road to watch us against Sheffield Wednesday, and we were a little bit flat, I thought, and we should have done a little bit better. And then Doncaster game, that was finally felt like, this is what this team could do. But fair enough, Doncaster have been rubbish this season, and over this the first half of the season, you can see that they're really struggling, but we put them to the sword. We actually took our chances, and it was one of those games that it could have ended up any scoreline. 6-0 wasn't that flattering, if that makes any sense. We could have even got more. So it felt like the end of September was like, we've got, 2 wins and a draw out of those last 3 games. Finally getting...
Yeah, we were climbing the table.
Yeah. And the fine margins maybe going in our favour, whereas earlier on in the season, not so. So, if we played Lincoln the way we played in August, we probably would have drawn that game, and we probably would have been beaten 2-1 by Sheffield Wednesday rather than 1-1. But it felt like we were just it was going our way, and we were definitely in the ascendance. And I think fans were enjoying that. The atmosphere at Portman Road was great. We're being vocal on the away days, as you were saying, and good attendance at home games. And also, it was just bloody good to be back at football, wasn't it? And then being back at football and seeing your team win, you can't beat that feeling. So yeah, September was a good. Well, excuse the Bolton result at the beginning of the month. It got better. Let's put it that way. It ended well.
Indeed. And Ben, October didn't start so well. A 2-1 defeat at Accrington, basically brought back down to earth after the 6-0 win against Doncaster and losing against Accrington. A long way to go. Then a 2-0 win against Gillingham in the Pat Johns Trophy. Then a 2-1 win against Shrewsbury. Then a 2-2 draw against Cambridge. Of course, another 2-goal lead squandered. Then what a night it was at Fratton Park, a 4-0 win against Pompey. Then Selena had to score a late winner as we just about beat Fleetwood. Of course, that was the first time Cook's management saw back-to-back wins, and also Brett Johnson was there to celebrate. And then we went to Plymouth, who were league leaders at the time, and lost 2-1 there. But a mixed bag of results, but it was good that we got back-to-back wins finally under Paul Cook.
Yeah, a bit like John touched there with September, was that we seemed like we were making progress, although we did take a step back with the Accrington result, which wasn't great. Felt like a defeat to Cambridge probably after being 2-0 up and having such a great following that day. I think a lot of people had sort of put a pin on that date to follow Ipswich that day and get as many, I'm sure we could have sold out that in 3 or 4 times over at Cambridge away. It felt like a real, particularly where I live, got quite a lot of stick not winning that game, unfortunately. Then we ended the month really on the flip. Well, before I talk about Plymouth, the Fleetwood win as well, getting that second win on the bounce, back-to-back wins for Cook. Fantastic goal as well. I think that sometimes is overshadowed how good that goal was. I think the crossfield pass by Evans, an unbelievable cross by Danassian. And then obviously Chelina finished it off. Portman Road going mad. Johnson's over. First time, that brilliant photo of him like in the air, which put a smile, I think, to every Ipswich Town fan's face. It really felt like we were on, going on the right track. I remember feeling really good. I think I put another £5 on us to get promoted after the Fleetwood win because the odds seemed half decent.
Fool.
Like an absolute idiot at the minute. Well, probably will feel like that at the end of the season. But and even the Plymouth game, I couldn't make it, but I did follow it very closely, and it seemed like we only had ourselves to blame. For so long, we were not creating any chances, under Lambert, and we created so many chances under this team. And although we didn't take them that day, it really felt like we'd made progress. The Portsmouth result was phenomenal. Away from home, winning 4-0 at Portsmouth, you felt like, again, beating one of the better teams in the league. A lot of the time, you're thinking the home games against Doncaster, like John said, we could have won that 10. I went to that game and we could have won 10. It was ridiculous. Doncaster was so poor, but Portsmouth, they're a good side. I think since then they've had a really, really good run, shown what a good side they are. But we just got injuries at the wrong time. I think after that, with too many players that that are key to us have missed games. I know we're just creaking into November and moving on with Darren, but November the 2nd we beat Wickham. It's my favourite time of the season. I went there with my dad, freezing cold. It was just a phenomenal win. Like, I just have to mention that on my part just quickly. It's still my favourite. Absolutely ages. I remember when we scored the 3rd or the 4th, my dad fell over and we just didn't care. We just like bundled him around like you're a teenager at a party. It was just like everyone's going berserk. It was just so much fun. Moving on to November, feeling very positive still.
Yeah, Dazza, as Ben said, it started off, what a night it was once again. It felt we had to lift off again with a 4-1 win against Wickham, but then got brought back down to earth with a 1-1 limp draw against Oldham in the FA Cup first round, a replay needed. Then, of course, the paper.
0-0. Was it 0-0?
That's 1-1.
Oh, okay.
The Barrow was 0-0. We'll get onto that later.
Barrow, sorry.
Well, yeah. Of course, the paper revealed James Norwood had been placed on the transfer list and told to train with under-23s. Then we had a goalless draw against Oxford. Then Al Mazzuni, of course, scored a stunning volley to, of course, progress.
I was behind the goal.
You were there. Of course, 2-1. Then we lost against Sunderland, although we controlled most of that game. I know John was very sad that we lost that one. Then reality check came in, of course, losing 2-0 against Rotherham, who are just unbelievable at this level. And then Selena, what a goal. Outrageous chip to get a hard work 2-1 home win against lowly Crewe, of course. Nervy game to end November. A very mixed bag, once again, month of November, which included some results that we just about got over the line, but also could have won ourselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know me and John were there for the Sunderland game, and that was not a game we should have drawn, let alone lost. We should have won that game. But for me, this is where This whole one up front thing, I've never been a fan of it. I've always said it on this pod for the last 2 years. It just it relies on everything being perfect. And at the Sunderland game, if you probably did one of those heat maps, we had everyone like in an arc around the box and only Bon in the box for the whole game. And it's the month was just made up of say that amazing win away at Wickham, and that's where the whole legend of our white away kit on a Tuesday night under the lights has really stamped itself. So much so that they ruined it by using it at Charlton a few weeks ago, unnecessarily, in some hope that it's spurred them on to get a result. But yeah, just starting to see that bit of frustration really, and the Norwood thing. What has gone on there, I don't know. I've heard all sorts of rumours. Obviously, there's nothing confirming all those, so I think you take those with a pinch of salt. But probably, I think him being done for drink driving and saying he wasn't guilty probably didn't go a long way in his favour for sure. But yeah, another month of some highs, and then not being able to follow it up, with games that we would be expected to win. I went to the away game at Oldham, ticked off another ground that I hadn't been to before, and actually enjoyed it. I was there with the sweet Welsh prince and his dad, and very good steak pie before the game. And we won, and Mizuni scored beauty. We were right behind the goal, so that was a bit of a highlight for me that month. But yeah, again, just time from a Paul Cook perspective, he needed a really good November. We'd had, September, and October kind of stutter, build momentum, and then November he needed it. He needed it to go well, and he didn't deserve the Sunderland loss. That was undeserved, really. If we'd have won that, he might have still been in his job probably, because then our following game, we might have got a different result after going up to Sunderland and beating them. But we went there and lost, and that would have affected morale for sure. But yeah, I think the start of the end, really, that month under Paul Cook, and personally, I was starting to get sick of his press conferences, just talking about we are consistently inconsistent. What was his phrase? Our only consistency is our inconsistency. And he seemed to say that every single game, which is fine when it's game 5, game 6, game 7, but not when you're game 17, 18, 19. That
it's also fine when you're a fan and you're not the manager.
Yeah,
it's your job to make us consistent, Paul, was what I kept thinking.
Yeah, and I would be hearing him saying, look, I love your honesty here, but you've got to fix it. Don't just stand there saying, oh, well, we never know what we're going to get, do we? That's not acceptable, not after
and
that.
I think his reluctance to react formation-wise within games and only adds to that, because we could all see that it wasn't something. If something's not working, then you go, come on, change it. No, we'll just do exactly the same thing for the whole of the game. Well, it's going to take a piece of brilliance like the Selena goal or something like that to change a game then, isn't it? Rather than doing something, forcing something to be different by changing shape or, I just think there's a little bit of frustration creeping in that. I think he put pressure on himself because of August start. If you go back to August, and if we go August and September, if we had our points tally, that what we deserved, nobody thinks we should have beaten Bolton on that based on the performance we gave. But actually, we could have easily won against Burton. We could have easily won. You go through them all, and suddenly, because we didn't get those points then, everything becomes pressurized. You can't have 2 games of not picking up points when you will be miles behind the leaders, and moving into December, Ross, which I'm sure, we end December with the league table of being something like 1-7, drawn 8, lost 8, something like it's 7-7-8 or in some order, something like that. And that is just mid-table mediocrity when we are 11th, because our inconsistency is our consistency, I suppose. Paul was right. But we shouldn't be where we are because we've got a better squad than that. And I think that's where my frustration came in with Paul Cook, is if he had handpicked or had the final say on all these players, because presumably Ashton said, I can get this player, are you interested, Paul? And I'm sure Cook would have had the final say. But he brought in people like Morsey and Evans and the people he had worked with before, Walton, etc. He's brought these players together at his request because he wanted to get rid of the old cohort, and then he didn't get the best out of them. That was on him, unfortunately. I wanted him to succeed, and he didn't.
I think our transfer turned into. I know when my son first started playing Football Manager, he would just sign everyone he could sign. Just he's available, I'm going to sign him, and me trying to explain to him, no, you need a balanced side. 2 players in each position and all that, all of that common sense stuff. I think you're right, John. We've got a great squad. I don't think our squad is particularly balanced. I think we've got too many lightweight, forward thinking. We've got too many number 10s basically, and I think we need a few more Morseys and some wingers because and a left back. Well, that's unlucky for Cook as well, wasn't it? Because he got Coulson, and then Coulson has only played 4 or 5 games or something, and then been injured the rest of the time. So that
absolutely
backfired.
You always have some injuries, and unfortunately, we didn't injure a number 10 because we had a few of them. We injured a left back, and Penny hasn't been good enough, and Coulson's been a huge miss. Do you think Penny's better than Kenlock?
I
know Ross probably does. I think at the beginning of the season,
they're not good enough. There we go.
Yeah.
I think Penny's probably a better forward player than Kenlock is. Kenlock's probably a better defender, so that's sitting on the fence. But I don't like Miles Kenlock. I don't think he's not the future of Ipswich, is he? So, and if Coulson's not fit enough, that's clearly an area that we'll need to strengthen and moving forward. But
and then Burns has been, Ben pointed out earlier what a quality signing Burns was. And to be honest, again, I didn't know much about him. I remember his goal that he scored against us in the last game of the season, but I don't know if anyone's ever worked it out. What's our record with and without Burns? But I would imagine without Burns, we haven't won many games. Compared to,
I think you could probably do a comparison stat with how Bond plays when Burns is in this side, and that was a strong comparison to when Bond's scoring goals, we win, and Burns provides a lot of the assists for Bond, doesn't he? So the two go hand in hand.
That goes back to my other point about having a right footer on the right and a left footer on the right. When Burns plays on the right, he can take a touch and cross it with his natural foot. And then whenever Burns isn't playing, we normally play a Luco who's left-footed. And so there's always a stop and a check, and then by then Bond is now marked. So, sorry, I know we shouldn't be getting into formations and stuff, but it's just, I don't think this. Sometimes I think managers, and certainly Paul Cook, has just overcomplicated the game, and
cost him his job.
Ultimately, good point.
It did. And we'll get into December now, the month we are in right now. Of course, the senior town side exited the Papa John's Trophy at the hands of the Arsenal under-21s. Of course, throwing away another 2-goal lead, losing on penalties. Then a 0-0 home draw against League 2 Barrow in the FA Cup second round saw the end for Paul Cook. His record in total, 44 games in charge, 13 wins, 17 draws, 14 defeats. Of course, Ashton said it will be an extensive search for the club's next boss. Jon McGeel was then made interim manager. Of course, saw a 2-0 defeat at Charlton, which was not a good evening at the Valley. Then, of course, a 1-1 draw against Wigan. Then, of course, we lost against Barrow live on TV. Once again, a game that you were at, Dazza. Crazy. But, John, it was the start of December. Before we get into Kieran McKenna, of course, getting appointed, I'll let sort of Ben finish off with December so he had the final say. But it was probably the right time for Paul Cook to go. It wasn't a good end to his management time at Town, was it?
No, it wasn't at all. And like you said, I think more people want the Lambert gone though. At the point where Lambert went, then more people want Cook gone. There's quite a few people saying give him time. I was one of those people who said we judge the season or start judging the season after 10 or 12 games. I find myself still saying that when it was 17 games in or whatever, and 18 games in, you go, actually, no, we now need to be looking at how we're actually doing. And you could argue that he failed with 2 squads in a short time, yet he hadn't been there for a full year. He didn't get the best out of the squad he inherited, so he brought his own squad, and unfortunately, he didn't get the best out of them. He had obviously earlier on in the year had the sad loss of his father and challenging times with change of ownership, and some unlucky injuries, but ultimately, he didn't do enough. You look at people like Morsey and Bourne and Edmondson, Edmondson's been my player of the season so far. You look at the quality of those kind of guys, and why aren't we getting more out of Chaplin and Fraser? Why aren't we higher in the league when we've got such a talented squad? And ultimately, the coaching staff, the manager being the leader of that, needs to take responsibility. And I know we've talked about it a lot, but I don't think it's fair to talk about the end of the Paul Cook era without mentioning the fact that it was his backroom staff that probably were the disappointment for me. If he had, and I'm not just going to harp on about Liam Richardson, but if he had stronger people around him, it wouldn't have all been on him. And I don't think Franny Jeffers, Ian Craney, and who've I missed?
Gary Roberts.
I like Roberts.
Needed. So, his time came to an end. I've got to be honest, it still did shock me. My logic said, oh, yeah, I can see why it's happened, but I was still surprised. And what probably surprised me more is that we didn't have somebody lined up. And Ashton and O'Leary talked about that's not the way to do things. We do things the proper way. But I'm sure most clubs speak to lots of people behind closed doors without people knowing. But it genuinely seems like we didn't have anybody lined up. So we did things the honourable way. But, you start looking at the performances we had after we left and you think, would we have been any worse starting the managerial hunt whilst Cook was still there? Because poor John McGeel, bless him, walked into a bit of a challenging task, didn't he? So, I think, again, the game against Sunderland summed up Ipswich Town in League One. Sunderland, my hometown club, took 4 points of us this season, and they probably deserve 1 at best. We should have won at their place, and we really should have won at our place as well. And yet they're sitting second in the league, taking 4 points off us, and that's because we're still too soft. The mistakes we make get punished, and we don't put teams under the cosh or grind out the hard-earned bit of the game as much as we should. And that's the thing that probably disappoints me. Cook talked about Morsey, a team with Morsey in the side would never have, we need people like Morsey standing up, and I think he is, don't get me wrong. But Edmondson and Morsey aside, I would like to have another 3 or 4 people like that who showed that kind of grit and determination.
I think when you look at, you just mentioned those names there, Chaplin and Fraser, Selena, or Chilena, has been probably correctly pronounced. Is it Chilena?
I think I always call him Selena.
Okay, well, I'll go with
Ross, you. Ross always gets the pronunciation spot on.
It's Selena. It's Selena. It's Selena.
It's Selena, right? But Scott Fraser and Chaplin both came to us with like all these amazing stats. Certainly Fraser, but they were probably the flair player within a team of 6-foot shithouses. And suddenly we're now playing with 3 in midfield with Selena, Fraser, Chaplin, and getting out, just getting out muscled. Certainly Scott Fraser, my daughter could probably push him off the ball. When you see him, you see him in the flesh, he just has no strength about him at all. I don't know if he's still ill or what. I don't know, but he just, that's my memory of the last few times I've seen Fraser play. He just gets pushed off the ball. He's got no strength at all. And when you're in the engine room, and I don't know, I went away to the Oldham game, and he was playing in midfield alongside Harper, I think. And Oldham just totally bullied him. Every time he got the ball, he just fell on the floor. It was embarrassing for him in the end. And did he? Oh, no, he didn't play in Barrow, did he? Did he play at Barrow? I can't remember. I've tried to scrub that game.
Yeah, I think he did actually. I think he did.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
And then he got hauled at half time.
Let's be fair. We never want to talk about Barrow ever again because
No.
I think the cliche of having like low points as an Ipswich Town fan, and you think things aren't going to get any worse, and then there we go. You know, that performance, that side, the Barrow side, wanted that game more than we did.
Yeah.
Were up for it and put themselves up for it. You know, I watched on iFollow, and you know you were there, Darren, but
I was there.
God, we were disappointing. We really were. You know, we looked like the lower league side.
Yeah, I knew we were in trouble when Toto was trying to like pass the ball around on the edge of his box in like the first 5 minutes. It's like I was there with Matt and we're like, what's going on? No, what's going on? No, we're not doing this.
That was another game where you could see that we'd lost all kind of leadership and direction. And it still surprises me throughout this last 12 months we've had as Ipswich Town fans that without any leadership and direction, how professional footballers can't seem to make the correct decision. So exactly like you're saying, Darren, like in Charlton as well, we were trying passes that just sometimes just get rid of it or whatever. Sometimes you just need to run a bit harder. Sometimes you need to put in a bad tackle and pick up a yellow card for the rest of the team to pick up their noses from the floor. So I'm just really hoping that under McKenna, we're going to find this direction. We're going to find a new way of playing football, a forward-thinking manager where we can do this stuff on the training ground and the whole team relates to it. And we do make the right choices. It's all about choices. We're not doing that enough.
Yeah, I mean, when those goals went in against Barrow, I said to Matt, I always watch the players' body language when, you know, you're all going back into your positions and waiting for them to stop celebrating. What are our players doing? Are they geeing each other up? Is someone giving someone something? And there was nothing. Tom Carroll was making excuses. He was like, "What? It wasn't my fault, you know, whatever." And everyone else was just stood there looking at the ground. And that's not, you know, I want to see people, even if it's not about bollocking at them, but okay, you know, let's get going again. Come on, we can do better than this, all those sorts of cliches, but something, a reaction, and they were all just stood there just looking at the ground.
But we're wiping it from our memories, Darren. Barrow never happened.
It's gone.
And as Ross is about to probably say about McKenna and a new era, that this is moving us into 2022.
Yeah. And I think the McKenna new era has to be, he's a highly respected coach. So it's time that a coach develops the players that we've got into better players, or at least getting what they've got in them out of them, if you like, you know, because there's no doubt that Scotty Fraser, Connor Chaplin, these guys are better than we've seen, you know, but he has to get the blend of the team right and coach the team to make good decisions without having to be told what to do and you know, bring out the best in the players consistently. That's what I want. That's my New Year's wish, I suppose, that McKenna can bring out what they're capable of, because I do think we've got a squad that is more capable than we've shown.
Definitely. And Ben, the final word really. Kieran McKenna, it's Barmy Army, the Nava new man in charge. We shall see what will happen in 2022. I'll let you have the final word on this fantastic chat we've had.
Cool. What an honour, Ross. Thank you very much. I was thinking about that chant actually, about, you know, how are we going to sing Kieran McKenna's name? That's something that's troubling me. There's too many syllables there to go into any of the songs. So whether it be K McKenna, I guess K McKenna's blue and white arm, I don't know. It's up to people better than me to figure that one out. But yeah, as John said, hopefully you can get on the training ground. And we've had a decent amount of time now moving into Wickham. Not that I'm expecting us to win 3 or 4-0, but I do just want him to see that we're making progress, that he's going to make our players better. I see many Town fans, it's quite a popular topic that when was the last time one of our managers made one of our players better? Whether it be a young player or someone we signed with potential and they've gone on to be better because of playing for Ipswich Town Football Club. So I hope that is what we will see not just one player, hopefully 11, maybe more, on the pitch in 2022. A consistent level of performance, picking up results in the right way, playing good football, the crowds to continue, no lockdowns, and maybe, as much as you've written it off, Ross, maybe we'll sneak into the playoffs.
We shall see.
Morsy's had it with you, hasn't he, Ross? He's going to show you.
He's going to show me. The whole team's going to show me. They're going to prove me wrong. And I'm sure many other fans who have sort of said, season's done. But we shall see. Dazza, Jon, Ben, thanks as ever for joining me. The year that was in 2021. Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully 2022 is a better year supporting Town. And fingers crossed. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Thanks again for watching. Let us know in the comments down below your thoughts as ever. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.